Okay, great. We are now live on the air. I'm getting green audio, which means you can hear me, which is great. So we're just getting started here today. Thank you so much for joining for our fourth webcast. It's exciting. We really enjoy doing these. We initially started off by saying we were only going to do 3. We were going to try out 3 and see where we went from there. And so this is the 4th. So obviously it's been getting a good enough response. So we thanks so much for joining. I'm Jeff Holland. I'm a program manager here in Azure working on Logic Apps, and I'm joined today by
Kevin Lamb, program manager on Logic Apps as well.
That's right. Yeah, just it's like the original one. No Steven this week.
That's right.
Just us two, but it's good. We've got a lot of good stuff to share. So I'll jump right into it. First off, I just want to give some updates on the community. There's been a lot of, one of the main reasons that we do this is for the community, to give content to community members, also recognition for things that community's done, and to answer questions. So first off, if you have any questions that you would like to be answered during this broadcast, if you're watching this on YouTube, you should see a little banner in that video that says that you can go into the Hangouts, the Google Hangouts. And if you go in there on the right-hand side, you'll see a question and answer spot. Feel free to submit your questions. You can also send us a tweet to @LogicAppsIO, and we can answer those at the end if there are any questions. Yeah, we'll just get started. So for recognition with the community, I actually published 2 blog posts yesterday, and we're going to be using both of them today. So the first one that I published was for community members. It's a community update. Sorry, I'm still out of it. Anyway, community update. So a lot of cool stuff has happened in the community. We've seen some cool presentations. I know yesterday in Calgary, Kent gave a presentation on Logic Apps. I saw one that Bill Chestnut gave in New Zealand for Ignite in New Zealand around API apps and Logic Apps, as well as a few different ones. Nick Hounston, who created the T-Rex NuGet library, has posted some cool blogs. So if you look at the comment section of this video, I actually added a link to the blog, which is the Logic Apps blog on MSDN. And the second post has a community showcase. And so you can see some links. I think I called out 6 blogs or 6 videos, the ones I mentioned just barely, as well as 3 other ones that are definitely worth checking out if you're looking to find out more about Logic Apps or how different people are using them. And a huge thank you to the community members who published that stuff. We really enjoy reading it as a team. We go over those things. We see those posts and read your comments. So thanks so much for posting those. In addition, I wanted to go over a quick demo today of some cool stuff that we've been working on. So
very exciting.
It's fun stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. And let's hope I don't keep stuttering. So I've actually been out for most of the week. I just had a new child, a new kid. Yes.
Yay.
So I guess I have not been getting as much sleep as I thought I was, because I keep stumbling over all my words. But let me go ahead and share my screen. We're going to jump into it. So the second blog post, the other one is in, let me make sure that you can see my screen now. Oh, that went away because I minimized it. The second blog post is actually a walkthrough. So just like I did on the first webcast, if you saw that, everything I'm going to share with you now, I created a blog post. I have all the syntax there. I go into it in more depth. So if you see this, okay, great. I'm glad I checked. Okay, I am now sharing my screen with everyone. Perfect. So if you see this demo and you have any questions or you want to go in more depth, check out that link in the comment section to the blog. It will go deeper into it. But let's go ahead and get started. So what I want to show today is there's a lot of people who want insights and telemetry into Logic Apps. And right now, out of the box, there's a lot that we provide. If I actually close the designer right now, you'll see we give you stuff like your run history, your trigger history, different events. We have a management API that you can do that with. We also have an SDK that we've recently published to help you figure out what's running with your Logic App. But sometimes you want even more, right? You want to have some extra insights, maybe even not just how is my Logic App running, but what is actually happening in this end-to-end scenario. And so there's some ways that you can integrate with Azure services just right now with the current Logic Apps to provide some pretty cool stuff. So we're going to integrate with Event Hubs, with Stream Analytics, and Power BI to do some real-time charting. Now, I've done this demo a few different times. This is a little different slide, so if you've seen this before, it's still worth sticking around. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So for this, I just want to monitor a SaaS application. So you might have a Logic App where you had like 8 steps, and you want to have an event go to Power BI after every one of those steps to tell you if something's successful, if it's not, how long it took, and that's great. You could do that. But another really cool way you can integrate with Power BI is to just strap Power BI onto an existing service we have. So for this instance, I'm just going to add Twitter, and I'm going to use Power BI to analyze activity on Twitter for a certain Twitter search. So you could, in the same way, I could add the Yammer connector, and within a matter of minutes have a Power BI dashboard that shows me how much activity I'm getting in a certain group. Maybe you want to do it with Salesforce or SQL. So it might not only just be monitoring the health of your Logic app, but just integrating Power BI because you want to see that visualization. So let's go ahead and add the Twitter connector. And I know you'll see some broken images right now in the designer. We know that we've got that bug right now. I was just talking to the dev lead about this right before we started. We're going to get that fixed soon. So apologies for that. But let's go ahead and let's just monitor the activity of the search term Microsoft on Twitter. So I want to know anytime somebody mentions Microsoft on Twitter. And you could do some advanced queries here. I'm just going to keep it this simple. And I want to check every 15 seconds how many things have happened in Twitter around Microsoft. And I want to have that charted in real time in Power BI. So before I add the Power BI stuff, there's a few things I want to show quickly. The first is, if I had a step, let's actually just add the Event Hub step. I'll show you how I got this Event Hub action in there in a second. When you add an object or when you're working with the designer, you've probably noticed this drop-down menu where you can see different items that you can grab. So for instance, let me even zoom in here. Hopefully you can see. Because, oh, that didn't work very well because I'm in remote. Because we're using Swagger, the designer knows kind of the form that the output of this API app is going to take. So it knows that this Twitter connector is going to have tweet text, retweet count, tweeted by. And you probably notice if you grab this drop down, you could even select things. So my message could be, tweeted by, and it's going to generate the syntax for you to do that. What I want to show you is that there's actually a lot more information that Logic Apps has about each of your actions than you might be aware of. And how I'm going to show you this is I actually just added the Twitter connector, and for the second step, I added the HTTP action, and I sent a request to request bin. And if you haven't used that service, you should check it out. So request bin, whatever my request bin was. And for the body, all I did was @trigger, right? And in the same way, you could say @actions if you had an action. But I'm not going to say .outputs. I'm not going to say .anything because I just wanted to look like what does this object look like? And I have it right here. So if you can see my screen, this is the full trigger object that the Logic App Engine has. And the reason I'm showing you this is because while you might be aware of this tiny little portion of it right now, which are things like the tweet text, the tweet ID created that I was showing you, there's also a whole lot more to it. And some really valuable ones that we often get requests for are these 5 right here on the bottom, which is the start time, the end time, the tracking ID, the code, and the status. So all actions will have this too. The only difference is actions won't have the tracking ID. The tracking ID is only generated by the trigger. But every action, whenever an action is completed, it's going to output things like its start time, its end time, and its status. So I can add in different events into my Logic app to say, hey, whenever an action completes, send an event into an event hub that tells me what was the status of this action, how long did it take to complete, did everything go okay, right? So this is really valuable if you want to track things, and you can add conditions so that if something fails, it still sends off an event to Event Hub and you get that status. So a lot of people don't know about these objects that are available. I just want to show those quickly. Now, the second part I'll need to jump into before I can finish off this quick demo is you'll notice right now in the marketplace, we don't yet have an Event Hub connector, but that's okay because if you've seen another one of these Logic Apps webcasts before, you're probably aware that we have a Logic Apps GitHub repository. So I've just switched to that screen now. We have a lot of open source connectors that you're more than welcome to fork or use or contribute to. Or if you have your own, we've got a community section with a few people who've got some API apps they want to share. But right here at the top, we have the Event Hub API. So if you go to github.com/logicappsio, and let's see if I can zoom in on that URL so you can see it. You can go ahead and one-click deploy. I mean, you could clone the code and deploy it, but we have this nice button in GitHub called Deploy to Azure, where when you click this, it actually opens up this web service, which will deploy this code directly into your subscription. So this is the actual deployment script. I just did this right before the webcast for my Event Hub API. I clicked next and deploy, and within 30 seconds or whatever, when I open up my Logic app, I now had this beautiful Event Hub API. And the reason I want that is because to get to Power BI, the way I'm going to do it right now is I'm going to send to Event Hub, consume that through Stream Analytics, and publish in real time. So let's jump right into it. So for this one, because I'm just monitoring activity, I'm just going to send a message into Event Hub. I would type in my connection string. A lot of times I add that as a parameter. So I'll say parameters, my Event Hub connection string, my name, which for this one is Logic Apps Live. And for the message, this is the message I'm sending to Event Hub. I'll show you what the message looks like. I kind of showed you the different objects I'm going to use, but this is an example of the message I'm going to send. I just want to send what was the name of the step that just happened, which is I grabbed the tweets from Twitter. I want a timestamp, so I'm going to use the function to get the time. I want to know what the tracking ID was, what was the status of the trigger, start time, end time. And then I also want to know some things about the tweets that it's receiving. I want to know what's the tweet text, what's the retweet count, and what's the tweeted by. You can imagine with your Logic app, you might want to pass in parameters to your events like what's the name of the customer or what's the purchase order that this is in regards to. So you could create whatever object you want. And at runtime, the engine's going to swap out all these @ syntax with the values for that Logic app. And if you have questions about the syntax, if you're not familiar, we do have a language reference right here now, right in the designer for you to easily see. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that in for our message. There we go. So that's it. So now I have a Logic app that's going to run every 15 seconds, grab the activity, and push a bunch of events into Event Hub around the tweets that it's getting. So the next step is we need to consume those events and publish it to Power BI. So I use a service in Azure called Stream Analytics, which is made just to do this. And Stream Analytics will query the events of your Event Hub in real time. You can write functions on top of them and then output to a number of different places. You could output into a queue, you could output into SQL, to Blob, to Event Hub, or my favorite is into Power BI. So I've switched now to the Stream Analytics query that I'm going to use for this. And if you're familiar with SQL, this looks just like SQL. They have their syntax down here. If I click this question mark, you can get a link to their query language reference to see their unique functions. But I'm just going to select the properties that I'm sending. I'm going to publish it into Power BI from my Event Hub. And Power BI works best in Stream Analytics when you do things in a window. You could push things to Power BI, you know, a million events every second, push them into Power BI, but it likes it if you group them into windows. I usually do about 5-second windows. It's in preview right now. You can experiment with it. But you see, I'm going to use this grouping by statement, and I'm going to group it by a window. And in this case, since I'm only grabbing tweets every 15 seconds, I'm just going to do a 15-second window to grab all these things. And I want to know, like, how many tweets did I get in that 15 seconds? And that's it. Okay. So I'm doing this query on top of the Event Hub for these real-time events that are happening. I'm outputting it into Power BI. So I know we've gone over a lot. Again, check out that blog post if you've gotten a little bit lost. But I want to show you now what that looks like. So I've created this dashboard, and this one's actually been running since last night. And this now, and you'll watch this update if we keep, because it's going to take 15 seconds. This is now a live dashboard in Power BI, and I'll make sure it updates. I might have to click refresh. A live dashboard in Power BI that is grabbing the information from Twitter and getting published into a Power BI dashboard. So you see here, I have the rate of people who are tweeting about Microsoft. Looks like it's about an average of 20 tweets every 15 seconds. I had more historical data before, but it actually, you could see it rose a lot once we hit the morning time here in the United States. I've also grabbed some pivots like, hey, what are the step statuses? So I have all the tweet statuses. And let's actually refresh this because it doesn't look like it's, I've had that window open for a while, so it might not be live refreshing anymore. Yeah, I definitely had to refresh it. Okay. But you also see I had the count of the amount of tweets that I processed. So over the past 12 hours that this has been running, I processed 36,000 tweets. You see the chart's already updated a little bit. How long are the average step taking? And right now it's 121 milliseconds, so 0.1 seconds. The status of my steps. So if you had a more complex Logic app, you can imagine each step you'd be able to track its status. And I've actually just created a view here, which is what are the viral tweets, right? What are the tweets that are happening where the retweet count is over 100? So here we've got one about Apple, Microsoft, Adobe, doing something with government, whatnot, right? Google, Microsoft. These are the viral tweets that I want to keep track of on my dashboard. So it doesn't look like we're seeing it in real time. Like I mentioned, it's in preview right now, but I invite you to check this out and experiment with it. Those are the 3 pieces that you need: the Event Hub, the Stream Analytics, and Power BI. I've created a lot of dashboards. I'm actually going to switch. This is a dashboard I made for a different demo that I did, which was a dashboard showing the different steps. And you can see here I tracked failures in my Logic app. I even have a failure log of here's the step that failed and here's the tracking ID, so I could do some queries on top of it. I even have a map of one of the parameters I sent in was the location. So I have a map of where my customer's coming from. And this one's not live right now. I'm not running that Logic app. But I want to show you, when you pop those things in to Power BI through Event Hubs, it gives you some really cool capabilities. And again, you'll notice the chart's been updating it. We just haven't seen it update on our screen. But the other really nice thing about this too is you could use, the Power BI apps. You don't even have to log into Azure anymore. You could open the app on your phone for Power BI and see the status of your Logic apps at any time from any device. So it's really cool services. They're fun to work together. So hopefully that demo didn't go too fast, but if it did, check out the blog. It's something we're really excited about. We're talking as a team to figure out how can we make this easier for you all to enable without having to create all these steps yourself. And we'll see what comes of that. But in the meantime, check it out. Send us your demo, send us your feedback. But this is some really cool ways to add some very rich telemetry into your SaaS solutions or into your Logic app workflows. So that is it. And if you have questions, again, feel free to reach out.
That is cool.
Cool stuff. So I'm going to open, and I'll open quickly because I still don't have that presentation from you, Kevin, which is weird. So you want to just, you do have some syntax there. Make sure it didn't go into junk mail. I'm sharing my inbox. I hope there's not, I'm actually going to close it. I don't even know what's on my inbox. Who knows what's there? Yeah. Anyway, so Kevin, for this next part, we wanted Kevin to go over his stuff. Oh, look, it just updated. We want Kevin to go over his updates for what's new in Logic apps, but for whatever reason, I'm not getting his presentation. Let me go ahead and switch back to our beautiful faces, though. So hopefully you see them. Here's us. I'm opening up Q&A to see if any questions came in while we were there. Yep, we've got a few questions, so we'll answer those in a little bit. And then Kevin, if you want to just start going over, I'm going to check my email on this laptop and not my remote session, where I'm also not broadcasting. I'll see if I can find it, but you can go ahead and start talking about what's new.
Yeah, hello, everybody. And as usual, we like to announce the things that have been released or are inevitably going to be released, and then the things that we're working on. So since the last webcast, you got it?
No, I never showed up. You know my name's Jeff Holland, right? It's not Steve.
I did send it to you.
It's really
unless
weird.
you have an alternate.
I do, but not publicly.
You get to miss all the animation stuff.
I know, it looks nice. I could, yeah. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, see that? There we go. We should just get sheets of paper and hold it up. We'll go. Yeah, we'll do that. There we go. Anyway.
Well, that's too bad. But voice will work just as well. So we have some new marketplace connectors that are going to be released any moment now. So as we promised in the last webcast, we are releasing the Bing Translate and Bing Search connectors into the marketplace. And so with those, you'll be able to create some more interesting Logic apps, being able to translate stuff on the fly as well as doing search terminology with Bing. Next is new and updated connectors in GitHub. We're excited about being able to give you an RSS API. One of the team members had created that and posted it in GitHub. So now you can have, instead of trying to map raw XML to JSON and do all that weird date management, we have a nice RSS API for you so that you can actually get RSS feeds and then handle that within your Logic app. We also created a SendGrid connector, so you can go ahead and send requests email through SendGrid.
That's right. Yeah, we know that there's been some issues with the SMTP connector with SendGrid, how their protocol works with SMTP and how ours does. Yeah, so if you want to use SendGrid, use that custom API, and you don't have to worry about it.
What's great about these is that it's all about the REST API. So we're creating really simple connectors that just make that integration a lot easier. But in the back end, it's just about REST. And then we've made updates to both the Event Hub and Notification Hubs in GitHub as well. We've made some UI improvements. So if you go to the designer, we've added some help buttons so that you can go and find out the details of the language. For example, you're trying to write an expression, you can't remember quite the syntax of that expression, now you can go right in the designer, click on that button, and it'll take you to MSDN, so you can look at that detail in the documentation. And finally, we have some trigger improvements that we released. You can now have a retry policy on your trigger, so you can go ahead and configure what happens on errors for your trigger, as well as being able to add a manual trigger. That manual trigger will then allow you to go ahead and call the logic app, and you can supply a schema with that. So then that object is well known and understood and parsable within the logic app.
That's right. So before you could pass, you could trigger a logic app through the management API, kind of manually, but the big difference is that you get the schema, right, with the manual trigger. Very cool.
And so all that should be updated in our documentation, so you can find it out there as well. So what are the things that are coming down the pipe? So what's in progress? The last webcast we talked about webhooks. Webhooks, we're still working on it. It's not a simple task, but our engineers have been feverishly working on getting webhooks out, and they've promised us by our next webcast that webhooks will be done. So,
nice.
Yes.
Our next webcast is in February, by the way. No, it'll be next month. So,
but we're getting closer to getting those done. So we're excited about releasing webhooks. There's a lot of capabilities that we can get out of that. Once that's done. The other thing that we're working on is message tracking. So we're adding some more capabilities so that you can do message correlation across runs. So right now you get a tracking ID per action and a correlation ID per run. But what happens if a message is traversing across multiple logic apps and multiple runs? How do you go and find that similar message across them? So we're tackling that by creating different correlation patterns and things that you'll be able to query. And we're also looking at other capabilities in the message tracking space. And finally, we're adding a couple new functions. One is encode URL, so that you can go take your simple string and then encode it so that you can use it as a URL to an endpoint, as well as adding a base 64 encode function so that you can go, particularly for auth tokens, like a basic auth case, you can go ahead and base 64 encode a string and send it along. There are other scenarios for using base 64 encode.
Sorry, so you'll notice the internet was slow today.
You got it.
Yes, but it just popped up in my inbox. So, but it's here now. So
did you go through the other ones?
Yeah. So so here's the one he just went over. I'm going to go back to the other one just so you can visualize it and see it, and pause the video if you want more detail. So here's what was new that we went over. So yeah, that was weird that it took so long.
I missed the SendGrid one.
Oh, SendGrid's on there too, but we did hit that one a lot. And there's the manual trigger syntax that you can see, which again is documented in our syntax. And then there's the in progress that I showed. Nope.
And of course, if there are features that are missing, or there's a feature that you really care about, please go to our forum and vote for it.
That's right.
On our Azure.com feedback.
Yep. Very cool. All right. So that is it. Now we've got some questions. Let me go ahead and stop. And sorry for those technical difficulties. That was weird that took so long to show up. It's not like it was that big. Okay, so we have 3 questions, and while we're answering those, I'll check Twitter to make sure that there aren't any more. The first one I'll start with is from Sven, and it's when you expose an HTTP endpoint in Logic app, so an HTTP listener, what is the size limit for the message that we can receive? You could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is set to the default of IIS, which is 4 megabytes, maybe 5 megabytes.
On the API app.
And the API app.
The Logic app takes a much larger message.
Right. So if you're using the HTTP listener API app, I believe right now it is 5 megabytes, but I'll validate that to make sure that that's there. And again, if there's some, I'm always curious too, when we answer questions like this, if you see things, if there's a situation that you're working with, you're like, hey, here's what I'm doing, and here's why I need the size to be this, and here's how we're thinking about it. Send us a tweet. Yeah, honestly, let us know. So, but I believe right now the limit's 4 meg or 5 meg, whatever the default for IIS is. The second question, I don't have an answer for this one. Hopefully Kevin does. When will the dynamic CRM connector be available? I don't even know if we've announced a dynamic CRM connector, but do you have any updates on?
Talked about it. I don't have an update to the timeline, but it is something that we are working.
Okay, so Todd, I will reach out to, I saw your question, so I tried to ping the man in charge. to see if I could get an update. So I don't have one for this broadcast, but I will go ahead and get the answer and answer it here when I can. Okay. And the second one is similar, but it's how about the Marketo connector? Do you know anything?
That one. Yeah, we don't have a timeline for that one.
Okay.
That was more of a business problem than a technical.
Okay. So again, Todd, I'll reach out with you on those. I've got your info here, so I'll send you a message and probably tweet it out too. So if anyone's watching and curious on those answers, follow us on Twitter and I'll keep those up. So I'll just check quickly now and see to make sure I'm not missing anyone who might have sent a tweet to us. Twitter.com/search. I had this open. I must have closed it before my demo. Okay, I'm not seeing anything right now. So I think we're good. All right, so that's it for this webcast then. We will be doing one of these next month, probably around the end of October. Make sure to follow us on Twitter if you want to get dates on that, as well as you could subscribe to this channel. And if you subscribe through YouTube, you can have it send you alerts. And we usually add the video on YouTube a week before we broadcast, so you can use that as an alert too. But thank you again, everyone, so much for joining. We love doing these. Reach out to us on Twitter, reach out to us on the forums. We'll be on both throughout the day and throughout forever, really, so you can always get a hold of us. And feel free to share us as the webhooks and those things come up. We'll be showing some demos next month for sure around those. But if there's anything that you've done that you want to showcase, I'd even be more than happy to have you dial in and present from Google Hangouts if there's something that you want to share with the community. So let us know. Keep us informed. And thanks, everyone, again so much. And we'll talk to you next month. Bye-bye.